There's no shortage of information floating around about the many benefits of strength training, and I think although most people don't know to what extent, they're well aware that strength training is critically important for reducing your risk for chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease and cancer, and for improving your overall quality of life. But I think where many people still get it wrong is in knowing what's required of them in actual practice to realize those benefits. So I brought in a fitness expert with nearly 4 decades of experience to help clear up the confusion once and for all. Let's get into this. Welcome everyone. I have an awesome guest for you all today. Debra Atkinson is here joining us. She's a fitness professional with over 30 years of experience. She has finely tuned all of that experience into a message that she communicates specifically to women over 40, helping them with energy levels, hormone balancing, and building fitness to have a better life. Like me, she has an extensive background in kinesiology. She's taught at the university level, but she's also an avid athlete herself. In short, she's been there and done that. She knows what works and what doesn't. And my favorite thing about her is that she preaches what she practices. Thank you so much for being here, Debra.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I think we had all the great conversation in the green room, didn't we?
Well, hopefully we've saved a little bit for the actual podcast. So one of the things, and I would love for you to just jump right into this because you have so much background yourself with this, and not to mention all the people that you work with, but why is it over the course of my training career, when I go into any gym in any part of the world, when I get into the room that has the really heavy circles in it and the big dumbbells, why are there hardly any women in that part of the gym?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'd love to say, I feel like it's changing. I feel like the tide is changing just a little bit.
Yes.
And I would also have to say that I will bristle, get my feathers ruffled a little bit, because somebody will come over and say to me while I'm at a gym, I just want to commend you on working really hard, and it just makes me laugh. I'm like, I have less time than you. I cannot waste it. It's like, I gotta get going here. So, I think we should expect that, but I think we're still dealing with in 2023, we're still dealing with, I'm going to get bulky. That weight room is bulky and right, women need it more than men. However, I think every weight room is designed with men in mind, not to make women comfortable. It still is intimidating for a woman to go in there. And
explain that to me, because from a man's perspective, I'm not seeing it the same way as you. So I'd like to hear what you mean.
Yeah. Well, number one, I think there aren't many female trainers up there. So if you want to ask a question, it's generally to a male trainer, and often he's got some size or some girth on him. That's not what a woman wants. So she's left to say, can he really give me advice anyway? If I don't know how to do this, do I want to ask him? So I think that's a problem. We don't have many orientations set up to take women in there and out there. We're not necessarily encouraging younger women to go in there when they are at that moment when they're still body confident. That's when we really need to get young women into the gym, when they're in their 20s and 30s, still feel really good, really confident. Because if you're in your 50s and things are starting to already shift, and you really need to be in there and want to change the way you feel, because look, vanity may motivate us, and I don't think we should shoot that down. I don't care what gets you there. That gets you started. Other things are going to keep you going. So, vanity is a great reason to get started, but it's hard. You're a fish out of water. You could be a very confident woman in the boardroom, in some business running the show. But if you've not lifted weights before, you're, returning to like holding somebody's hand, walking into first grade, being the new kid. That's how it feels. And I think we just don't have enough. How do we teach it before they get there, and not have them feel like a fish out of water when they get there? We still need some education, and we need to make it female friendly.
That's a really good point. The other thing that I would love to see included in that is like an introduction to programming, because I think one of the things that bogs women down is that they have ideas in their head about what exercises they should be doing and what exercises they shouldn't be doing. And I hesitate to use the term, although you would be familiar with that. Oh, that's a men's exercise, or that's a women's exercise. I just released a video today on my YouTube channel showing people how to do walking lunges, which when I started lifting weights was a woman's exercise. My favorite leg strengthening exercise of all time. You pile, yeah, you put some dumbbells in your hands or a barbell on your back, no matter how strong you are, that exercise can kick your butt, and it builds up everything.
Yeah, I love it. I love it too. It's balance, it's core, it's a stretch and mobility and strength all at the same time. And we do it. We do it every day. People say, well, I can't do lunges. I'm like, I bet you 9 to 1 you did one already today. And you don't even know it. Right?
Such a good point. It's like that term functional fitness has been bastardized, but that's what functional fitness is to me. It's like, can you get up out of a chair? Can you get up off the toilet? Can you get into and out of a car with ease? Because if you're used to using performing walking lunges, doing all of those things is super simple. That is the definition of functional fitness. That's why most of us go to the gym.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're the voice of reason. Where have you been in my life? This is so good. But I totally agree. And I think there are a lot of trainers who are preaching this, well, that's not functional and this is not functional. It's like, well, let's come back to what are the goals? I mean, where are we at? Where's this person at? What do they want to do? I've worked with a lot of people in 39 years. I worked with a 96-year-old. She's the oldest client that I worked with, Margaret. And she had a very specific goal. She wanted to be able to get up and down out of her chair 6 times during a day. She wanted to be that strong and no stronger. Okay. And I'm, why 6, Margaret? Well, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and to go to the bathroom in between. Boom. That's all we need.
Go ahead.
Very specific. I mean, she knew exactly what she wanted and she needed.
And it leads me into the next thing, which is we were talking about myths, and I want to circle back to this in a second, where this idea that has been put into women's heads that you don't do this, you're going to get bulky, you won't look feminine anymore. But the other big one is that it takes a lot of time to build up the fitness. And so by starting out with those really well-defined goals, why am I here? What do I want this practice to add to my life? Because I'm not a big fan of like fitness for the sake of fitness. I'm a big fan of fitness for the sake of living a better life.
Yeah.
So like, I don't want to show off to people that I can do handstand push-ups or walk across a football field on my hands. I want to be able to run around and play with my kids and put my daughter on my back and run up a hill. I want to be able to do that. And I want to keep up with them. I didn't have kids until much later in life. And so I got to stick around for those little guys. And that's why I go to the gym. I don't go to the gym for the sake of the gym. And so I love what Margaret was doing when she came in. She's like, hey, I want to do this because it's going to make the quality of my life better.
Yeah.
So what does it actually take with somebody like Margaret to accomplish her goal in terms of a time commitment in a week?
Oh my goodness. Well, she's 96. So let's just say, she doesn't have a lot of time left. Number one, she doesn't want to use it all up with me. Right.
That's a good point.
15 to 20 minutes, 3 times a week. I would go in and see her. I'm in her room, I'm out of her room. And that was all she needed. Just are literally practicing small range of motion, gradually strengthening her in pain-free range of motion, getting that to expand little by little. Yeah.
I love it. Pain-free range of motion, expansion little by little while building strength is one of the things that I preach in the Pain Fix protocol over and over and over again ad nauseum. Now, to your point of, 15 minutes 3 times a week, there was a study published, you may have read it, that was in the British Medical Journal, big meta-analysis. It reviewed, there were like 1.5 million subjects. It was just published July of 2022. And they showed that 30 to 60 minutes of strength training per week 30 to 60 minutes per week led to as much as a 20% reduction in cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and the all-cause mortality.
Yeah, I love that.
It's amazing. It's like that's what we need to be aiming for. It's like you're talking 10-minute sessions 3 times a week for that kind of benefit, plus massive benefits in cognitive decline, all the things that people are worried about. You know, nobody wants to have Alzheimer's or dementia. These are terrible things that can demolish a person's life. And it seems more and more that strength training is perhaps the biggest puzzle piece, that action step that people can take for preventing those kinds of problems.
Amen to that. I mean, we're coming back to, it's related to muscle and related to mood. So type 3, right? Diabetes, Alzheimer's has been talked about as type 3 diabetes. So we need to stimulate the muscle in order to be a sponge for blood sugar, but it's not just for insulin resistance and that, you know, belly fat that no woman loves in midlife. But to your point, do you know that, you know, small amount per week, that is a really common question. People are so conditioned for decades, you know, many midlife and older women have heard, you know, cardiovascular time has to be between 20 and 60 minutes for it to count. And they're so used to that. That is their question. It's like, how long should a strength training workout be? And I would like, here's the question I wish you would ask. like, you know, what would make any length of workout most effective? If I have 10 minutes, what should I do with that 10 minutes? If I have 20, what should I do with that 20? A better way to ask that question, I think.
Such a good point, which leads into what should women and everyone really be focusing on with those shorter duration strength training sessions to make sure that they get the most bang for their buck.
Yeah, well, I think we're probably in close agreement on this, but those compound exercises, you know, I mean, sitting down, standing up, bending over to pick something off the floor, that's a compound exercise. And unless, you know, you want to tell me, I say this in tongue in cheek, I am not picking on you if this is your sport, but very few women come to me and want to stand on a stage nearly naked and pose, right? And that is when you need to isolate muscle groups and you have tons of time to spend very frequently throughout the week. Most of us don't have that. We're trying to fit in little snippets a few times a week, and it's so smart. So I think it's really, let's just make sure we're doing this right. But compound exercises, meaning we've got lots of flexion and extension going on at multiple joints. So we're crossing and using multiple muscle groups at the same time. So we're talking push and pull and compound leg exercises like squats and lunges.
Yeah. And what are some of the additional benefits if, say, somebody is spending 10 minutes a day doing bicep curls versus 10 minutes a day of doing rows or pull-ups or pull-downs or push-ups, compound exercises, versus doing a tricep push-down or a calf raise? Like, what does it do to a person's metabolism to train compound versus isolation?
So much better. And that's the golden word. So metabolism, definitely. You know, and strength training is one of the only ways to improve your metabolism without increasing age.
Explain that.
Great quote, right? So it comes from Dr. Furman actually said that. And don't you think I didn't use that quote for years afterward? I was like, that's brilliant. But everything else that we may try to increase our metabolism is actually going to increase our aging because of the oxidative stress. Namely, what do we try to do? We try to boost our metabolism with cardiovascular exercise. Well, what you're doing is rushing closer and closer or faster and faster to a biological age that is much older potentially than your birthday candles. So there's that piece, and you're probably doing much more muscle wasting as you increase cortisol levels and increase inflammation. I mean, this is just not the way to go. I think we all think, If you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, definitely. We all think, I wish I could get back to the way I was fit when I was 30. But if you get really honest, if I'm honest with myself, I was exercising a lot. So fitness instructors, we're the worst. We're the absolute worst. I mean, we taught, but then we would say, oh, but that's not my workout. So I got to go get on Stairmaster for another hour, and we're hours a day exercising. But when I think about it, that was not fitness. That was what we all thought looked like fitness. But I was probably also drinking more Diet Coke than anybody needs to ever hear about ever. And probably having an ice cream cone going through McDonald's because I also needed some sugar.
Yeah.
And this is not fitness, so getting honest, I think, and thinking, I think what we really want is the time in our lives when we had 45 minutes to an hour to spend on exercise and flipping through a magazine. That's what I want, right? Give me a spa. Give me a spa, right?
That is absolutely an amazing fact that strength training can boost your metabolism without increasing your age, and all the other things that we try to do end up kind of backfiring in a way.
Yeah.
The other thing that I love about it is that when you add muscle mass, you boost your basal metabolic rate. So you're burning more calories all day long following these strength training sessions. And can you talk a little bit about approaching calorie burn that way versus approaching calorie burn via steady state cardio?
Yeah. And let's answer this one, because I just had this very recently, and somebody in my audience or community challenged this. And I'm pretty sure it's probably somebody who, quote unquote, resistance training, right? So, I mean, that's meta, if anything is. But she said, I asked my dietitian or asked my nutritionist about the increasing your metabolism. And she said, really, you're only increasing your metabolism by 30 or 40 calories a day if you increase your lean muscle mass by 1 or 2 pounds. And I said, that's a short-sighted view of metabolism boost, because here's what I really want you to think. And this is what the studies show. And this is, I can't quote you the journal, but I can tell you that this is on postmenopausal women. And they divided them into 3 different groups, probably 4. There was a control group, but they had them doing 1 cardio and 1 strength training a week. They had them doing 2 cardio and 2 strength training sessions a week. And they had them doing 3 cardio and 3 strength training sessions a week. And they wanted to look at who has the greatest energy expenditure. Where was the greatest benefit? So a lot of us would, by conditioning, say, well, the person who exercised the most, that group who did 3 and 3, not so much. They did what I call couch compensation because they were tired. So from all the exercise, they sat more, they were more sedentary. So we've got to remember, it's not just the value of the 30 to 60 minutes a day that maybe you're exercising, quote unquote, going to the gym, but it's the 23 hours of the day. How active are you then? How inspired to be active and motivated to do things, to say, yes, let's go for a walk. Let's garden. I want to go play golf. Let's do that. And be that yes person. The people who did the 2 and 2 were most likely to have the greatest total energy expenditure across the board, because it was enough to gain strength. 1 time a week wasn't. They were just nothing, they were like starting over every time. But the twice, enough strength, enough energy and stamina increases to want to do things, not just think they sounded good, but want to do them. And not so much that they were couch compensating in between. So you want to find that sweet spot. I call it the MVP, the minimum viable physical activity. So you get the benefits, but you don't get tired.
MVP. Such a good point. Such a good point. And that goes back to what we were talking about at the outset, which is, what do people need to know when they get introduced to strength training? What level do I need to hit to get the maximum benefit from this and not burn myself out? We're doing this to enhance our lives, not for this to become our lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the other thing that you talked about there was NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And how do we use strength training to stimulate us to go out and do more as you said, outside of the gym where life actually begins.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've forgotten that,
Yeah.
my mom passed up last year, and I interviewed her shortly before it. Thank you. She had a super long life. We were really lucky to have her. So it's not a sad thing. But I interviewed her, of course, on Facebook, which I'm grateful I've got that to go watch. But I asked her, I said, do you ever regret not exercising more? So I'm doing a live right on Facebook. And she says, no. I said, I'm going to have to edit this, right? That was not the right answer. So the next day, I'm still staying with her. I come back and I said, Mom, if we could have kept you in your house longer, if you could have driven your car longer, and I knew her head or with that one, if you could have played golf longer, would you have signed up for that if there's something that could have done that? Oh, yes. I said, well, that was exercise.
Yes.
It's like now you got to ask the right question to get the right answer. But I think that's the factor. It's
That's
like,
it. And that goes back to Margaret and the story that you told.
yeah,
I'm doing this to enhance my life. Now, let's talk about a scary aspect of that as well, because there are way too many women suffering from osteoporosis. The most recent number that I could pull was 1 in 4 in the United States. And there's many, many more, as you know, that have concerns of low bone density and osteopenia. As far as I'm concerned, the vast majority of those should not exist at all. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of strength training as it pertains to maintaining healthy bones throughout your lifetime?
Yeah. Okay. And this one, I'm going to make it worse before we get better. Okay. I think if you're a woman right now who knows she has osteoporosis, or you have osteopenia, the only difference between you and somebody who doesn't is you've had a test. I think most of us over the age of 40, most of us most likely have low bone density. But it's like you've said, that first probably 40 years of our lives, that first 20 or 25 years of our quote unquote adult lives, women have spent doing cardio and not doing strength training. And we've got lower muscle mass to begin with. And, we used to separate the two mentally. We bone, muscle. But the truth is we need to work the muscle in order to work the bone. It pulls on the bone. It is stimulus. And we need more muscle in order to do the things that allow us to gain more bone density safely. Higher impact activity, more activity, being able to lift heavier weights, which is what bones respond to best, requires more muscle. And we also think protein, right? We think protein muscle, but now we realize protein and bone also go together. That way back in 1995, when I first was educating people, I had to explain what osteoporosis was. It wasn't a household word like it is now. And we thought protein was evil. We thought protein led to diuretic loss of bone, and that was terrible. Well, now we've done a whole 180. We need to be eating more protein to benefit the bone as well as the muscle. But totally agree. Women haven't done that either. We've cut out protein. We eat a low protein diet for the most part. And that is also a part of the detriment. So strength training, building heavy, and doing high impact activities. So if you're a woman who's got osteoporosis, I think the good news, and still a little scary, but we're seeing more and more research that was just started prior to the pandemic come out and say, you're not fragile. We don't have to put you in bubble wrap. That we were afraid at the beginning to do higher impact or higher intensity with you, but we now know we're seeing positive results. And we're actually seeing women who were put in those programs love it. They love it.
It's such a good point. And one thing that I would like you to expand upon is, because I think some people might get scared off by the idea of training with heavy weights. So can you talk about how that actually works from a practical perspective? Because obviously we're not going to take somebody right off the street who comes in with osteopenia or osteoporosis and throw them at a heavy barbell. We're going to ease them into the process. So can you maybe talk about progression and something that I'm sure you're familiar with, and I know I've seen in every gym I've ever been in is you can tell who's serious and who's not based on one simple thing. It's not how hard they train. It's whether or not they write down what they do.
Great point. Yeah, great point. Yeah. So we've got to start with something super light. We kind of, the neural connection happens first. As you know, it's just, it's like ringy dingy dingy. It's like your brain calling up the muscle so that we get this activity going on and there's a stronger connection, and you've got a great connection going on. We can't rush that with a heavier weight anyway. So when you first start, we want you to start extremely light and just putting you through good motion, good patterning, so that we can call those muscles to action and make sure that we're not calling the ones that shouldn't be active in a certain exercise. So yeah, definitely recording how much weight did you lift, how many repetitions did you do, and how did it feel, right? And not just how did it feel during it, but how did it feel 24 and 48 and maybe 72 hours after? How do I feel now? Because we want to be going forward, not be going, one step forward, two steps back. So take it slow, go to the edge, not over the edge, meaning you can leave feeling like I could have done more. That's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, such a good point. And the other thing that I want people to know is that when you're dealing with the spectrum of fitness and you're talking about this idea of progression, it's this Kaizen idea of constant and never-ending improvement. So you never arrive, and for me, that's motivating. Some people get they feel bad when they hear that because they want to arrive, especially in American culture. We're taught to cross that finish line. But with fitness, it's not that. And the really cool thing about that is no matter where you are along that spectrum, when you go in and challenge yourself to do something that's at your level of capabilities, you grow a little bit up that spectrum. And then you write it down. And like you said, such a good point. How do I feel 24 hours, 48 hours after? So that you're not getting into those 3 and 3 cardio and strength training where you feel burnt out. The last thing in the world that you want to be doing is spending time, effort, and energy to make yourself exhausted. We want to enhance our lives. So what rep range and how many exercises do I do in order to make me feel super energetic and ready to go about my day the next day?
Yeah, so good.
And writing that down is just so critical. In the gym that I'm currently going to here, I am the only person in the whole gym who writes down my workouts. And the funny thing is that I'm the oldest one in there by a large margin. I'm like twice the age of my contemporaries in the gym. They look at me and they're like, "Oh my God, how are you still in here?" And it's so funny to me, but I'm the only one writing it down. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm the only one that's going to be in here 2 years from now. Because I know exactly what I'm doing and I don't leave here dragging myself out the door like they do. I hit my numbers and I'm out the door so that I can live to fight another day and come home and play with my kids and hang out with my wife and do the other things that training in the gym prepares me to do.
Yeah. Oh, beautifully said. And what are you? These kids are 5 in there? What?
I have a 4-year-old and a 10-month-old. And my 10-month-old son is a brute. So my wife and I have a joke now around the house where she's like, yeah, it's like taking candy from a baby, and she tries to take something out of his hands and he can't get it out of his hand. He will hold on to it like rock solid. So yeah, I have to train in order to keep up with all of them. So that's why I go. But I love the story about Margaret because it was that specific goal which dictates your training. It doesn't need to be a lot. And once you've hit your goals and set yourself up to enhance what you want to do in life, get out of the gym and go do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I think that's such a great point. I think, when our goals revolve around weight loss, as they so often do, it's not enough. I think what you want to go is one step further or two and say, when I lose the weight, what's it going to allow me to do? And use that as your goal. That's your goal. Yeah.
That's an awesome point. Now, you have a big event coming up here starting May 1st, and you've brought in how many experts to talk with you?
39.
Wow.
39. Yes.
Wow, amazing. So where can people go to sign up for this event? It looks fantastic. You're talking about everything that we covered here and much, much more, talking about hormone balancing, optimal training schedules, how to do it right and without pain. And I know you have a lot of other topics. Where can people go to find out about the summit?
Yeah, and I think you've got a link. It is the what, the when, and the why to exercise for women 40 and over. And here's a whole mission, the umbrella behind this, and it is that women are, midlife women specifically, the most powerful health influencers in the world. I mean, no one influences 3 generations like they do. So we influence 85% of all household decisions. And we have to include our health habits in that. What everybody's watching you do, not just hearing you say that you do, but watching you do. If we can change your life and get you to be able to use the unique gifts you've got, we can change history because of what you're doing and the impact you have on 3 generations.
That's awesome. I love your goal. Debra Atkinson, thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. And I can't wait for everybody to hear your talk because it was amazing.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put links for your summit in the description down below this video. And I hope to get you on for a round 2 in the near future.
You know it.
As you can see, Debra is a wealth of information and a great big ball of energy. If you want to see more of what she has to offer, you got to check out her upcoming summit, What, When, and Why to Exercise for Women Over 40. She's lined up an awesome panel of experts, and that event starts May 1st. To sign up, click the link in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. I'll also put a link for it down in the description. Beyond that, I just want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.